Indeed, it's a great privilege to have with us Dr. Sanjay Bahari from SCPG, actually a well-known neurosurgeon, and please join me in thanking him.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
So, as all of you know, it is a kind of a series of talks on the topic called Tech Talk with the Top, something that was initiated recently. It was a joint initiative of the Bioincubator at IIT Kanpur along with what you call it, the Design Innovation Center. This is a kind of a virtual center funded by the Ministry of Human Resource Development and the Biological Science Bioengineering Department. This is the fourth talk in that series, and it's really, really nice to have Professor Behari there. The idea behind this talk series is that the community here, the students, faculty, research staff, are trying to understand what are the challenges that the medical professionals face in their healthcare needs. Okay? So therefore, whether we could come up with certain intervention solutions to address the problem, which may be unique to our country, given all other limitations that we have. And that's pretty much the focus. And we have been inviting people here to come and share their experience and the challenges that they face. Therefore, this kind of an interaction would lead to some meaningful projects or small technology being developed and so on. So that's pretty much the idea. And today's talk, the title is very, very interesting. This is hatching a brilliant idea versus its effective execution. So both are equally important. Probably Professor Bahari will convince the second one is probably more important than the first one, because there is many a slip between the cup and the lip. That's what he's trying to convince us. And just to give a brief introduction, Professor Sanjay Bahari is an additional professor and unit head of the Department of Neurosurgery at SGPGA Lucknow. And he did his MBBS from the SMS Medical College, Jaipur, MS in General Surgery, and MCH, DNB in Neurosurgery from SGPGA. He's a visiting professor in many universities abroad as well as within India. And Professor Bahari's research interest the skull-based and neuro-oncology is one domain. He also has got interest in complex spine and craniovertebral junction and vascular neurosurgery. He received various fellowships like the Sujita and Fujita International Fellowship from Japan, the UICC Fellowship from Germany and Switzerland, Commonwealth Fellowship, the Dartmouth Fellowship from the USA, and he is in the editorial board of Facto Neurology India, and Journal of Craniovertebral Junction and Spine, Journal of Pediatric Neuroscience, and many other journals of repute standing. He is editor of 5 textbooks, 215 peer-reviewed publications in national and international journals, and he has authored more than 74 chapters in books. That really, is impressive kind of output from his group. And with this very short introduction, I request Professor Bahari to come and share with us the challenges and with a very interesting title, the idea to its execution. Professor
Bahari. Good evening. It's such an honor to be here, to be amongst the most intelligent people in India is an amazing privilege, and I'm grateful for this. And you cannot imagine, when we were in school, it would be IIT mein ghusna hai, IIT. And so there would be two groups of people. One who were the IITians who knew physics and maths and all those things, and there would be some people who will give PMT who did nothing till they completed their school, right? So it's such an amazing privilege to be amongst the most intelligent people in India. And over 26 years as a faculty member of SGPGI Lucknow and in the neurosurgery department, I have understood one thing. A lot of it, we all have brilliant ideas. One, we don't know how to execute them. And the second thing is, we do not understand the difficulties that we shall encounter when we are trying to execute these ideas. And therefore, I thought it'll be a nice thing to talk about an idea to its execution. There is many a slip between the cup and the lip. And everything relates to the neurosurgical perspectives. Considering that there are nearly 55 branches of medicine, you can understand the potential scope that you have to innovate and to intervene and to improve patient services. The saga of the Marudhar Express. This is a very interesting slide. It all started from here several years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, Avinash. So, you know, I was traveling. I'm from Jaipur, and Professor Avinash Agarwal is also from Jaipur. And we were both traveling together in one compartment. Of course, we didn't know each other. So our respective families were sitting right across each other. We were not talking to each other. And suddenly there's one person who came, and it was Diwali time. So he shoved one bag inside, then he put another bag inside, then he put a third bag inside, and they put a fourth bag inside and a fifth bag inside, and all our feet went up, and then he started putting the sixth bag inside. And we both got up and said, nothing doing. That was serendipity, okay? So that was serendipity, because I said, nothing doing, we will not. Both of us got up. And I was, of course, a thin, lean guy, and he was like what he is today. So, you know, we could convince him to take all his luggage away. And then we started talking. And when we started talking, then we suddenly realized that he's a professor at IIT Kanpur, and I am a professor at SGPGI Lucknow. And there was so much we could do together. And then he kept, you know, asking me to come again and again and again. And I kept on, you know, kind of saying, oh, no, I'm busy, I'm this, that, because I was really, you know, operating every day and all that. But then suddenly one day he said, there is a small institutional lecture, and why don't you come and just take a lecture? I said, okay, fine, I'll come and talk about neurosurgical aspects and all that. When I came here, so I said, I thought there'd be about 20, 25 odd people, and maybe there'll be a small thing. And there were 400 people there. And that same day, there was a Vedanta lecture the same day, and there was another lecture after that to be taken by a French person. And they said, please, 5:45, you must finish your lecture. Don't exceed your lecture. And I said, yeah, sure. At 5:45, I finished my lecture, but then nobody was willing to go there. And for another 2.5 hours, we kept on discussing about biomedical equipment. And then I said, wow, look at the potential interest and what we can generate here and what we can get. And then about 20 people came to SGPGI, and these projects are going on. And now, there was a 10 crore grant from IIT Kanpur, and we are the spoke. So we have about 1 crore, and lots of small projects are going on. So therefore, it's now escalated into a pretty big thing, and there is going to be a technology wing which is starting from in SGPGI, and likewise, I've been told today that there's another technology wing which is coming up here. So it all started with that one person who showed, like, you remember. I should have taken his photograph. So the saga of the Marudhar Express. So neurosurgery is a very exciting arena for innovation. So first of all, you know, the biggest problem about research and everything is that you are capable of so many things, and we have so many problems as the end users. But we do not know that you are capable of doing a certain thing, and you do not know what goes on at our place. So I thought it'll be a good idea to first tell you what neurosurgery is all about and show you some actual surgeries. So this is Iqbal. He's sitting right here. So yes, he didn't know yesterday when I was taking his video why it was being taken. So he's operating under an operating microscope. This is the usual setup. This is Dr. Iqbal here, and so this is the kind of operating microscope that we have, and it looks inside, and you get a stereoscopic vision. And of course, this person is standing on a nursing platform, and you can see the conventional TV screens here. So everything is being projected here so that the whole OT team can see what is going on here, because you're actually magnifying it to a very large extent, and therefore the whole thing is being projected here. And you just see, so this is just a table. This is the nursing platform, and this is available for millions of dollars. And this was bought from Japan, and now it's gone out of order, but we are still, you can see all the rusted things, but you still want to, you know, persist with it because there's nobody in India manufacturing it. And the reason why nobody in India is manufacturing is this is a little special, because, you know, by just touching these small panels here, the person can lift it up, can slide it on the side. So what happens is if you're doing the craniotomy initially, then you'll use this panel. When you're actually going to the next step of surgery, you use this panel. And when you're doing actual microsurgery, then you use this panel. So the nursing staff can actually change this table. And you can see that these are panels. The trays can go up and down, move from side to side. And of course, you can see the dilapidated look of the thing. Now, this is a very interesting chair. And this is a striker chair, which is, again, very, very expensive. What is so interesting about this chair? So what happens is that you can actually take it up and down. And now the present ones that we have actually chairs on it. What I'm saying is that I just purposely, there are, of course, more sophisticated and better chairs there. But why I put this is that for the last 2 years, all this needs is a screw here to keep it in place. And every time it goes loose, somebody puts another adhesive plaster there and another adhesive plaster. You know, they're all doctors there and nurses. So they will put one adhesive plaster, another adhesive plaster, another plaster. Nobody thinks of calling an engineer to just put 2 screws here. And then I go mad one day, I start shouting in the OT, then, oh, the professor is angry, so they'll send it to chamber for repair. So you can understand the disconnect. You know, they can understand the disconnect, you are laughing at this, but imagine that this chair, Jayesh, how much this will be there for almost 4 years? Yeah. Exactly 4 years, or maybe more. You understand? The other thing is, you know, the interesting about this chair is, why do we need this special chair? Because, you know, this can go up and down, and what you can also do is you can actually put foot controls here to control your OT table. And when we are actually working with an operating microscope, then we need to continuously manipulate the patient's head while keeping it stable so that we can look from one angle and when we look from the other angle. So what happens is, if you look at the principles of light, what happens is at the point of focus, you know, as soon as the thing enters a small hole, it's a point, but then it disperses. And when it disperses, so inside you can look at a wider view. You understand? So just by changing the position of the patient a little, you can actually see one corner or the other. And that's why a chair like this, which has this connection to the table, so that you can manipulate the OT table to actually see different parts, and the surgeon can control it, is an amazing thing. And we had this before, and unfortunately, we don't have the money to buy it. And it's a very simple way to actually manage it. Now, this is a Sugita head frame. So what happens is, we cannot allow the head to move. So what we do is we have 4 pins here, mechanical pins here, and this fixes the head. And once the head is fixed, then this goes into the ratchets of the table. And once that happens is that what you do is you can actually tilt the table this way and that way, and therefore you can actually keep on seeing different angles. So this has to be fixed. And this is special because one is that the metal has to be special, because why does the metal have to be special? Because this will be autoclaved again and again. This has to be completely sterilized for every surgery. So it's not so simple. You know, more and more problems start creeping in. What you need to do is to keep it completely sterilized, and to keep it sterilized, you have to again and again autoclave it under very high pressure and steam. So therefore, and for nearly 2 hours. So therefore, this needs a special metal, non-rustable, and therefore you have 4 pins, and this fixes the head. And this is the actual surgery yesterday. So this is the open brain, and we have this complex system which is attached onto the head frame that you saw. And what it does is it has multiple retractor systems. They are like, you know, retractor systems, and they are named after the daughter of the inventor who used to dance like these retractors dance, and they are known as Leila retractor. So they're named after the daughter of the inventor from Switzerland. And he's now regarded as the father of neurosurgery. So therefore, these are Leila retractors, and you can actually put them. And now they are moldable retractors. And why are these moldable retractors needed? Because they're very important because of one reason, that in the brain is very soft. So if you retract the brain, it is going to get injured. So what you need to do is to have a pressure which is just optimum. It should retract the brain, and yet not be so the brain should not be so hardly retracted that there is contusion of the brain. You understand? So therefore, this is a contribution from IIT, that one of your students by the name of Rahul, what he did was, working with us, he made sensors on this, and he used another biocompatible material, and this is now already submitted for patent. And therefore, now we can actually see how much is the pressure that we are applying, and if it goes beyond an optimum pressure, then it will stop retracting. And normally what happens is this is mechanical, so you do this and that, and then it tightens up, but he has used a special material, so if you just touch it, then it automatically becomes fixed. And if you leave it, it becomes lax like that. The interesting thing here is, there's an interesting corollary to this. We have 16 such Lila frame. Why do we have 16 when we have 4 frames? Because every time when we go to the company says, we can't repair it. Okay? And this has been going on for 16, how many years? 16 years, 2007. So 2007, so you can calculate. So from 2007, the company says, now this is broken, so I'm sorry, we can't do it, so we have to buy 2 more. And then this is worth 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs, another 2 more, and 2 more. And we bought 16 such retractors. Until one of my own students, by the name of Harcharan Singh Sohar, what he did was that he left neurosurgery and started his own small company, which is only making neurosurgical instruments and cardiothoracic instruments. And he just came one day, and he said, oh, this is nothing, I'll just repair it. So I said, oh, can you repair this? We've been wanting new ones. We are down to our last few retractors. Can you repair it? Yeah, sure. Give me all 16. I'll repair all of them. So I gave him all 16. But now the file has to move. So the file moved to the JDMM, then it moved to the director, then it moved to the finance officer. Then it came back that there are that 3 people have not, given their, submitted their, quotations. So then 3 useless quotations are made. I hope there's no recording. Oh, there's a recording, I'm sorry. Anyway, so it went on. And then, so that went on. And then later on, so it's still stuck there. Okay, so it's still stuck there. So you have to understand that it's still not moved. And it will, I said, how much will the total thing cost? He said, it cost you 2 lakhs. To make the whole thing. And each one of them we are buying from the company for 4.5 lakhs or 5 lakhs. So you can imagine the difference which you can make to patient care and healthcare. Now this is an operating table. We have not been able to start one operating theater simply because this was not working and we need to buy a new one. And the important thing about this table is, first of all, it is radiolucent, okay? So that we can do imaging on this. The second important thing is you should be able to break it down into different sections. Yeah? So you have to break it down into 1 section, 2 sections, 2 sections, so that you can adjust the position of the patient during surgery. And therefore, if you have another connection to the surgeon's chair, you should be able to manipulate the table towards the right or the left. And if you can manipulate the table to the right hand side, you can look into the corners and actually see what's going on. You get it? So just small innovations can make so much of difference to your patients. And now comes again, so this was yesterday, and this is our ENT colleague who's actually holding an endoscope and with a small hole here, and this endoscope is actually being put into the brain. And now what is happening is that look at how ergonomically, how cumbersome this is. He cannot see anybody, he can't move his thing because this is in the brain. And if he shifts his position, then that's the end of the patient. You understand there's going to be a hematoma there. And he's looking at the big TV screen, looking at it on a 2-dimensional scale, and he's looking at it 2-dimensionally, and then he's trying to put, with one hand, he will hold this endoscope, with the other hand, he will put in instruments. Now, I request all of you to come to our operating theater and see how you can modify instruments and instruments and instruments and instruments so that this procedure becomes so simple for us to do. You can make endoscope holders, you can have different instruments, you can have different types of optics. What is the need to have such a big tube there? Why can't we have just specs and they can actually give us the same view which a very thin optical fiber will give inside? We can, I was just talking, you can make it 3-dimensional. If it becomes 3-dimensional, then we assess the depth. Right now what happens is, we're just trying to guess the depth. Okay, we don't know what the depth is because it is 2-dimensional, because you're actually looking at it on a medical screen. And this is the view that you get. And of course, this view is very good, very sophisticated for the present, but it's two-dimensional. So you don't know what you're doing, what the depth is, how much more tumor to remove, what is the membrane behind it. All this becomes a problem. A simple thing like a bipolar, bayoneted bipolar forceps, we import it. Even in India, when we make some of them, and they're not so, maybe not such good quality. And what is needed? Just current passing through these through. This should be non-stick. They should be moving apart, and current should be passing through it, right? What is so great about it? We are importing all of them. And we use it for every surgery that we do. It's such a sad state of affairs. And I'm sure all of us can just do it. Now, this is one area where all of us are very interested in. So this is the craniovertebral junction. So this is the junction of the head and the spine here. And this is a very, very important area of the head, wherein it's very mobile. So you have the head, and it's the most mobile spinal segment. And sometimes in the state of Uttar Pradesh and all around Uttar Pradesh, there is a condition known as atlantoaxial dislocation, wherein there is dislocation between the atlas and the axis, the two vertebrae, the first and second vertebrae. So there is an instability between them. And because of this instability, the patients become quadriplegic. And we have, at present, in the ICU, some patients who have been on ventilator for 6 months, and we've not been able to wean them off from ventilator after surgery because their respiration is so compromised, and they are just lying in the ICU. So what we do is we stabilize so that they don't move in relation to each other. And what do we use to stabilize? We use multiple instrumentations like this. So we have this, and we have this small screws, and we place them into the vertebral bones at appropriate levels, and we fix with a metal plate. And most of these, now a lot of companies in India have started manufacturing them. But are they really innovations? No, they're not innovations. They just copy exactly those international companies. They make those, the same kind of, their screw heads are exactly the same. Their pedicle screws are exactly the same. Everything, the instrumentation is exactly the same. They're just copying them till more stringent copyright laws come in, and then they'll be in grave trouble. And this is where we all need to come in. We need to tell you what the problem is, and you need to find innovative solutions which do not copy these Western instruments that we all have. So this is another one, Suesh. So I brought all of them along, all the actors in this different surgeries. So this Suesh is actually doing surgery here. And you can see this is a high-speed drill. And this is used to, cut the bone. And these pedicle screws are put on the spine, and then they're fixed with rods here. So just to give you an idea about how surgery is done and what are the ways wherein you can innovate in the high-speed drill, you can innovate in the self-retaining retractor systems, you can innovate in the pedicle screw that you place, you can use different materials to do this. There's so many ways you can actually change the thing. Sterilization is a big thing. Every instrument has to be sterilized. And the unfortunate thing about our residency program is that many of us, after they pass out, don't know how to sterilize instruments. So they go to the nursing home and then they phone up, sir, isko kaise sterilize karte hain? Ye to hame aata hi nahi. They can do the most complex surgery, but they don't know how to sterilize their instruments. And we have a steam sterilizer, and we have this plasma sterilizer. So this sterilizes in 45 minutes, and this sterilizes in 2.5 hours. So now the problem with this is one cycle costs 30,000 rupees. The cassette of this plasma sterilizer costs 30,000 rupees per cycle. That is the cost. It's just sterilization. So and this will cost 2.5 hours. So now we have a new trauma center. So one head injury comes, we operate, and then we say we don't have instruments for sterilization. So now we'll have to wait for 2.5 hours to manage head injury. You get it? Till we get more instruments and more instruments and more, can't we do something which will make it faster for us to manage? These are all ideas that I need to throw in. Next is, I need to tell you how neurosurgery is actually done. So let's go to some surgeries. So this is known as a meningioma. This is the area of the brainstem which controls the respiration, and it also controls the movements. So this is known as brainstem. This is the cerebellum, and this is the temporal lobes here. And you see that this huge tumor, and this part of it is calcified. So I don't need the anatomy. I want you to know this anatomy, but anyway, not for today. When you come to my pre-op session, then I'll, but anyway, so this is like the dura, this is the normal layer that you see, right? And then you see, so we are retracting the dura, and this is the micro scissors that we use to cut the thing. And then we cut and then retract, and this is the bone of this base here. This is the bone of the base. You gradually go on retracting and cutting, and these are very fine scissors that you can use, and this is under very high magnification of the microscope. And then you just go on cutting, and then this is the part of the bone that you need to drill to actually access the whole tumor. And so then we use a knife to cut the outer layer of the dura, and then use drill to drill this part of the bone. This is a very high-speed drill, very sophisticated drill that we use to cut this part of the bone. So we are using this high-speed drill. Now what happens is when you use this high-speed drill to cut this part of the bone, you actually convert this part of the cavity and the posterior part of the cavity into one cavity. And when you do that, you can actually expose the whole tumor. So this is the whole tumor which is exposed, and this retractor, I told you about the self-retaining retractor, it is holding the brain and the dura away. And because this tumor was partly calcified, so we are using this high-speed drill to actually drill the tumor. And now what you do is, you will see the brain, actually how the brain looks like. So this is how the normal brain looks like. So it's yellow, there are multiple blood vessels, and then you retract, and then this is the tumor, all this is tumor, and this is a layer which is present between the middle fossa and the posterior fossa here. So once you cut that, so we are using micro scissors to cut that layer, and having done that, you are exposing the entire tumor. So this is the entire tumor that is being exposed here. Okay, so once you expose this entire tumor, again, part of this tumor, this part is calcified, and then you use a high-speed drill. But you must remember that when you're drilling here, there is brainstem just below this, and brainstem controls your respiration, controls your cardiothoracic system, it controls your motor movements. Everything is controlled by this brainstem. So you remove it piecemeal. You don't want to actually remove it like a big laddu, because if you do that, then there's going to be traction on the brainstem, and it's going to cause injury to the patient. And there are, of course, multiple small perforators which are actually supplying the brainstem. And if one of them gets injured, again, the patient is going to develop severe deficits. So you just remove it piecemeal, gentle. It takes about 6 hours, 7 hours sometimes, just to do one surgery. And then you remove, and then there is a layer. You always preserve this layer, and this is a layer of arachnoid that you always preserve. And then comes the base of the brainstem and one cranial nerve which goes on this, and then you are actually removing the tumor. So with gentle irrigation, you are removing this tumor. So this is just one tumor removal surgery that you need to know. I'm just, you know, it's very, sometimes, you know, the conclusion will tell you why I'm showing you all these. So this is the brainstem. So this is how the brainstem looks like, and the tumor has been removed here. And of course, you see the normal brain, and you put some fat there, and then you stitch it up into layers. And this is the post-operative image which shows you that this is the trajectory taken and the tumor has been removed. Now come to another section which is very interesting. You see these multiple blood vessels here, and this was causing lots of seizures. And you see that these are the multiple blood vessels. And here comes another very interesting thing. This is so very expensive to do the digital subtraction angiogram. There are innovations that can be done on a digital subtraction angiogram. So a dye has been placed in the internal carotid artery, and that is supplying this arteriovenous malformation, which is supplying the brain. And you see that this is an imaging of the MR angiogram, and you see that this is the extent of the arteriovenous malformation. And so what was done was that first our radiology colleagues put in a catheter into this whole thing, put in coils so that they could decrease the vascularity of that whole AVM, and then we went in and resected. And just see how it looks. So this was the way it was so vascular, and this was the whole thing. And now you see that this is how it looks like. So you see that this is the whole conglomeration of blood vessels of the brain, and you have to gently, and this is the normal brain on the side. And when it bleeds gently in small, you know, instances of bleeding, and that bleeding causes iron deposition, which causes seizures. So what you have to do is to gradually dissect it off and remove it. And therefore, it involves a lot of technology. It involves somebody to put in an angiogram, then I'll put coils there or put glue there, take care of all the blood vessels, and then comes the surgical part, use microscope, use a lot of instruments. You can also use intraoperative dyes to know which are the vessels which are feeding the brain and which are the arteries and vessels which are feeding the arteriovenous malformation. And gradually, so this is the drainage area. So drainage areas you preserve for the last, because if this vein is coagulated in the beginning, then the whole thing will swell up and this patient will actually succumb to during surgery. So what you have to do is to meticulously preserve the draining vessels and go on coagulating the arterial supply. Excuse me. So this is how it has to be removed. And so I just wanted to show you what the final picture looks like. So just go, now you see gently, you have to keep on going to the depth, go on removing this. Now this is the bipolar coagulation that I was talking about. This is a suction tubing, and this is somebody putting saline. So you can have self-irrigating bipolar forceps so that the person doesn't have to put saline there. And this is, this thick part is the part which my endovascular colleague had embolized. So it becomes easy for me. The part which is at a distance from me is not bleeding, and therefore you can actually go resect it and remove it. And I just want to take you to the last part where so the whole thing, we have circumferentially dissected it off from the brain, and then you see this is the portion. And so now as you go on coagulating it from all sides, what happens is that the blood supply to the tumor goes on decreasing and it becomes less and less vascular. Because suddenly if it starts bleeding, then it's a big mess. Everything starts bleeding from all sides. And therefore, technology is a must. Looking at it, you see the microscope, see the endoscope. You have to continuously make sure that every equipment is working, that's working in perfect unison, and that you can actually do it. So what you can also do is you can inject some blood vessels and see their patency, see if they're actually supplying the brain or they're not supplying the brain. So you see a little bit of bleeding, and you see how rigorous that small, you just leave something and you see this is just a very minor bleeding, and it really is of no consequence. But imagine if the whole thing starts bleeding suddenly. So therefore, you have to just make sure that so this is once the whole thing has been removed, then you see the normal brain all around, and you can actually remove it. And this is the post-operative image. It's a little bit of blood. This is just a post-operative image, and the whole AVM has been taken out. Now comes another very interesting case where technology is so important for you that you cannot imagine. This is one tumor which is just present at the level of the eyes. So you have the eyes here, and this tumor is coming right up to this point here. And this is causing unilateral nearly complete visual loss, and also decreasing the visual loss on the opposite side. This appeared to be a tumor in the outpatient clinic, but when we did an MR angiogram, we found that this was an aneurysm. And aneurysm is a weakness in the wall of an intracranial blood vessel. And this is a weak wall. It doesn't have all the layers of the vessel wall. And this can suddenly rupture, and the patient can die. So 50% of the patients don't ever come to the hospital because there's a sudden death syndrome at home. And one of the very important causes of sudden death syndrome is subarachnoid hemorrhage due to aneurysmal bleed in the brain. But all those who come, so this was a giant aneurysm, and this was just emerging, and this was pressing on the optic nerves. And this was an angiogram done which shows the aneurysm, and this is again a surgery. Now what you see is something very interesting. So this is at a very high magnification. What you are doing is there are multiple layers seen. This is the optic nerve. This is how the optic nerve looks. And this is the internal carotid artery, which is the main artery supplying the brain. And this is where this giant aneurysm is. So it's not accessible to you at the present moment. So this is the cranial nerve third, which controls your eye movements and controls how you will blink. So if this gets damaged, then the whole eyelid will fall. So therefore, the whole thing is dissected off that blood vessel, and this is where the aneurysm is. You see this aneurysm? It has a very weak wall, and it is a giant size aneurysm. And what we do is, in order to exteriorize it from the blood vessels, we can do two things. One is we can put in a clip to exteriorize it, or we can put in a stent inside to exteriorize it. And both of them are all international technologies. Nobody in India is making all these things. And we really need to do this. So then we actually want to mobilize the optic nerve so that we can actually see the aneurysm. So this is so we cut the dura, we drill the bone on the optic nerve. So this is the optic nerve, and we want to mobilize the optic nerve so that we can go proximal to the aneurysm and actually clip it. So we have drilled this, and now you see it is possible to just mobilize the optic nerve. And this is the proximal end of the aneurysm. This is the distal end of the aneurysm. We need to further mobilize it by drilling more. So this is a very high-speed drill. The higher the speed, the better, the more stable it is, because the less it kind of moves around. So this is something that you need to develop in India. You need to develop these equipment in India. It's very important for you to do this. And therefore, you have the high-speed drill, which actually has cored out the bone. And now you will be able to see both the proximal and distal ends of the aneurysm. So again, the high-speed drill is used, and this is under very high magnification. So this is less than 2 to 3 millimeters in size, actually, if you look at it with naked eyes. So therefore, this piece of bone is removed. And these are microdissectors. So these microdissectors, when I showed it to a few of my IIT colleagues, they just laughed. They said, well, we can make it for 11,000, and we purchased it for lakhs of rupees. So these are microdissectors. So this is what this blood vessel is. And this is the optic nerve, and here somewhere will be the aneurysm. So first of all, we are going to the proximal end of the aneurysm. So just removing a shell of membrane from the outer wall, and this is the internal carotid artery. So this controls movements. It controls the blood supply to the entire half of the brain. So this is what it is. It is the internal carotid artery here, this one. And the aneurysm will be somewhere down there. So now, you see, now it is possible for me to actually mobilize the optic nerve and go to the proximal end. So my dissector is actually going to the proximal end of the aneurysm there. And I move it to the distal end. So now you see that these are aneurysm clips. So there is a spring here, and when you press the spring, the blades open up, and the aneurysm is clipped. And as soon as I release these clip applicators, the blades close, and the aneurysm is secured. Can't we make this in India? What it needs is an adequate pressure so that it does not fail after it has been closed. That's all that is required. So it needs an adequate clip pressure so that it does not fail. That's all that is required. So what you need to do is to innovate these things and make them in India. So see, it's now been completely excluded. And this is the post-operative. You can see that the aneurysm has completely gone, and you can see 2 clips which are applied here. So these are all very doable things at IIT Kanpur. Now we come to after the time is over, I come to the main part of my talk. And that is many a slip between the cup and the lip. So what happens is that you want to, go up this way, and you go, and the chair falls, and you go another way. So this is exactly what happens every time. So why does it happen? First of all is the fault is within you. And there's a very beautiful Japanese concept, and that is ikigai. And it is the things you live for. It's so interesting, things you live for. So when you are, what you do, what you are good at, and profession, when you combine them together, you get passion. When you are indulging in a vocation, and that is what the world needs, you are on a mission, right? When there is passion and mission, it's what you love, but there is no money, okay? So, and without money, there's nothing, okay? So what you have to do is to develop ikigai, things what you live for, wherein everything together, what you love, passion, what you're good at, profession, vocation, what the world needs, and mission, all of them come together, and that's what Ikigai is. And that's, unless you have that, there is no innovation, there is no new idea, there's nothing you can do. Even if you get an idea, you'll suppress it and say, no, no, I have too many things. Roti, kapda aur makaan to pehle kar lu. You will not get into this. Now, the second question which comes up is it serendipitous discovery, or does fortune favor the prepared? Now, in 1921, I'm telling you a very interesting story of how diabetes was established and how insulin was established. So what happened was that there was this young assistant professor by the name of Banting. And this is the guy, and this is after he won the Nobel Prize, so he was like looking very distinguished, but he was like a young guy at that time. He was an assistant professor. And they had discovered that there was some pancreatic solution which could be injected, and that decreases blood sugar and it controls diabetes. So what he did was he said, let's have a lot of sheep and let's take out the pancreas, take out the ingredients from the pancreas, inject them back again, and if the diabetes is cured, then it means that we have discovered insulin, right? So now he had two postdoc fellows. One was Best. This name is George Best. And the second one was another one, we don't know anything about him. And why don't we know anything about him? Because what they had to do is to tend to the sheep, they had to feed the sheep and look after the incision and post-surgery and everything. And now what happened was suddenly there was summer vacation. And both of them had to go somewhere for their vacation, they were enjoying themselves. So they said, let's toss. Who will stay back and who will go? So they tossed, and the other guy said, oh, I have won the toss. And he said, I'll go for vacation. I will come back in 1 month's time, and you go in the second half of the vacation. So poor Charles Herbert Best at University of Toronto stayed and tended to the sheep. And this guy went on a vacation. The second half, guess what happened? He never came back from vacation. And therefore, then suddenly in the second half, things started moving. They discovered this thing, then it went on. And then what happened finally was that 1921, this was going on. In 1923, the professor of the lab, MacLeod, and Banting received the Nobel Prize. But Banting was very angry because Best didn't get it. So he shared his Nobel Prize with Best. And therefore, now it is known as Banting and Best. So they are the two people who are credited with the discovery of insulin, which cures diabetes mellitus. Now, coming back to the question, is it a serendipitous discovery that the resident did not come, so this guy got it? Or does fortune favor the prepared? It is a bit of both. It is a bit of both. There will be serendipitous discoveries, but it will also, fortune will come to a prepared mind. And therefore, if you are involved in a particular area, you will see patterns which others don't see. And this is where all the difference comes in. If you are not involved, and if you are just rushing to do one research and then second research and then one innovation, and then it's not of any use, not of any system good use. Okay, there's some small things you will do innovation, but it's not of real important use. The third is very interesting. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people will be able to identify that here. You know more about this thing than I do. Yeah, it's just been taken from the internet. I'm sorry, but so this is so having faith in the idea, and these are gravitational waves, and this was predicted in the mathematics of Einstein in 1916, and in 1974, 20 years after Einstein's death, we discovered gravitational field. So sometimes you get an idea, but you suppress it. You say, this is not possible. This is too stupid to be true. Have faith in yourself. There is a leap of faith. What is the maximum which can happen? You will fail. But it doesn't matter. It will lead you on to things which you would not have thought of before. So therefore, you must have that leap of faith and actually do this. Now, another very interesting thing is, what does now mean in physics? And I mean, it's all relative. You see this? Is it happening right now? It's not happening. It may be happening, some minutes ago or some hours ago, and you see it now. You understand? So actually, in relative terms, now means nothing. The other very important thing is that everything is relative. You might say total eclipse is this, you might say total eclipse is this, you might say whatever. But this is just a phenomena, so there is a changing phase to the phenomena. So if you see it at one point of time, if you see it now, it means nothing. What you have to take it along its changing phases and then discover it. When you take it along its changing phases and then discover it, then suddenly you will see patterns which a normal person will not be able to see. And this is what you need to do. You need to take it along, take your along the changing patterns that nature offers to you. Another very interesting question which I asked you is, does this represent you or does this represent you? Anybody? Does this represent you? Future, you had a past, you had a future, and you have a present, right? Anyone? Can anyone from the audience? Yeah, somebody, participant. Does this represent or does this represent you? So the important thing is that this doesn't represent you, this represents you. The future and the past of every person is not the same. So you have a future, you have a present, and you have a past. The other person has a future, the other person has a present, and the other person has a past. So there's no need to think that this guy is doing something and I'm not doing this and looking at something else and all that. You decide what you want to do and continue to do what you have to do. And you will continuously face this, "Arey, we kya kar rahe ho? Ye to bekar hai, ye to kuch bhi nahi hai, isme kuch nahi hai." That's immaterial. You are doing it for your passion, for your love. It does not relate to anybody else. They will keep criticizing, they will keep saying something or the other. You do what is your passion, and that is why your future is not this person's future. They're all different. Each person has a different future. Please remember this. And this, of course, I have translated it from this beautiful book. You need to read this, The Order of Time. Another very interesting thing is saying no to non-essential. What happens is that time is exactly the same for everybody, but what happens is somebody who's continuously doing this and doing that and getting agitated is actually losing time. And the same time, if somebody is still, somebody is concentrating, somebody is focusing on what he or she thinks is good for the person, then time stands still. You get more time. Therefore, please be patiently watching a thing, go on moving in that particular area, looking at that particular idea, and then suddenly you will find that things are better and better. So the difference between speed and velocity is this, that speed, you can go round and round, you appear to be moving, but you're not moving. But velocity will give you a vector, and you need that vector to move. Now comes the most important slide that we have. And it's such a pity that with such large institutions where selection is such a rigorous process, and each one of you has had international training, and each one of us has had several international trainings. It is so sad that it's only 1 hour away, and you don't know what we are doing, and we don't know what you are capable of doing. And this is responsible for 90% of the problems that we face in India. We do not know what you are capable of doing. And you do not know what we really want. We cannot sometimes express our difficulties to you because we don't know that you are capable of doing it. We don't even know that you are capable of understanding the problem from your perspective. He said, you don't have a background of medicine. How can I tell him about this thing? Okay, you will say, oh, Patani, God knows what they're doing here. It's all very high-risk stuff. I don't care about this. No. So the point is, how do you get involved? You don't get involved by staying here, and we get involved by staying there. We get involved by you becoming a part of our team. And we get involved by becoming a part of your team. Therefore, when your students come to me, 20 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, 24 years old, Professor Nachiketa has been sending so many of them. They are so brilliant. Each one of them has come up with such beautiful innovations. When they come there, they'll say, sir, can I wash up for surgery? I go, sure, wash up for surgery. They wash up. Then they measure. This is the relative distance. This is the thing. This is the thing. And we can't even figure out what he's doing. And then suddenly, the whole thing starts to take shape. And we are amazed at what goes on. Somebody changes the biomaterial, somebody changes the design, somebody changes some other aspect of it, and we are amazed. We'd never thought that you were capable of doing all this. And therefore, you must know what the end user wants, and we must know what you are capable of. Now, this is Professor Avinash Agarwal is here. And I'd like to share with you the saga of Dr. Avinash Agarwal. So what happened was, now this is a very stupid obsolete instrument, which is known as Hudson brace and bit, and 90% of the medical colleges in the country don't use it. But the problem is you can't give a high-speed drill to residents in the night, so you sometimes give this. And this is a perforator which makes holes. So after you made 4 holes here, then you either use a drill or you use those saws, those giggly saws, those thin saws to actually do a craniotomy. Okay. Now the problem is, one is like this is shaped like this, and there is a second which is known as a burr, which is flower shaped, and they are very delicate instruments. Now the problem is this goes up to a level, when it reaches up to the inner table of bone, it stops, and then you have to use the flower to make the hole larger so that it doesn't go in and injure the brain. This is all very simple. But what happened was that my residents came to me and said, sir, वो तो बहुत blunt हो गया, कुछ करिए sir, कर नहीं पा रहे. मैंने कहा अच्छा blunt हो गया है. So I said call the बुलाओ, call the person from outside, call somebody from Hazratganj or Aminabad or some place, and let him sharpen it. So no, I can't sharpen it. This is too delicate. I can't do it. So then I went to one engineer, I went to second engineer, I went to third engineer, I went to the company. The company said you have to buy new perforators. We have disposable ones. This, that, everything went on. It went on for several years. And then what happened was, then I had operated on, since it is being recorded, so I won't tell you the, the organization, but let me tell you, it is one of the biggest organizations of India, and which probably makes, which is capable of making airplanes, okay? And I had operated on the father of the director of that place, so I phoned him up directly, and I said, sir, can you just sharpen our birds? And he said, no, we are not capable of doing this. This is too sophisticated. This is like too simple for us. We have this machine, this, that. I don't know what to do. I said, I'll dump it. Let's see. Apply force, okay? So I told the residents. And then suddenly, his phone came. Avinash's phone came. And I said, Dr. Avinash, I have a little problem. We have these 40 birds, and can you just repair them? Okay, what is it? What is it about? No, can you just repair it? It'll take some time. I don't understand what it is. Bhej de yaar, bhej de mujhe. I can't just send it to you. I have to get this letter, permission, this, that. Said, bhej de yaar, usme polythene mein daal ke bhej de, kal dekhenge. मैंने कहा 40 के 40 भेज दूं. हाँ 40 के 40 भेज दे. सारे 3-4 ले ले यार, उसके बाद में कर लेना. नहीं सारे भेज दे. अच्छा तो कैसे भेज दूं? कहते नहीं अभी शाम को 4 बजे कोई एक एयरपोर्ट छोड़ने, लखनऊ एयरपोर्ट छोड़ने आ रहा है ड्राइवर, तो किसी को पॉलिथीन में डाल के दे दे उसको. मैंने कहा वो कुछ रिसीविंग देगा क्या? अरे छोड़ यार, क्या रिसीविंग तो दे दो यार. So I am like that bureaucratic doctor of SGPGI. So दे दे. So then फिर क्या हुआ? Next day he phoned up. अरे यार, मैंने कहा अरे क्या नहीं हो पाया क्या? चलो छोड़ो कोई बात नहीं. सर नहीं हो गया. मेरे को हो गया? तो कितने हो गए? सारे हो गए? I couldn't believe it. And this is a true story, you understand? So see, even for such a basic thing, we do not know that you're capable of doing it. And you don't even know that we are having such problems. And therefore, it's very important that we have a continuous interaction. Therefore, becoming a part of the organization of the end user is an absolute necessity. Now, the very important point that I'd like to make it, that no seminal idea can be executed without 2 separate technologies coming together. What happens is that I'm thinking of a particular thing, and you are thinking of it in another different way. When we both unite to actually make it a collective effort, suddenly there is going to be a dramatic shift in the way you're doing things. The problem is, what you are doing is, there is a very simple retractor to be made. You will make that retractor. Then there is a simple scissors to be made. You'll make the scissors. Then there is another something to be made. You'll make that. These are very small stuff which you don't need to do. What you need to do is to have a dramatic change in the way you are doing things, in the way you're innovating things. And that can only happen when 2 people work together who have completely different ideas, who are not in consonance with each other, and who have no training background which is common to each other. That is when there is going to be a sudden and dramatic change in the way you will see a particular thing. Because I will see the particular thing in my way, and you will see that particular thing in your way. And both of them are completely different. And I just want to tell you, Dr. Jayesh is here, and Dr. Karthik and Dr. Jayesh with Dr. and Professor Nachiket, and we devised this small piece of equipment here. And so just to give you an idea, so this is where this is applied, and this is a very important area, as I said. So this is the C1 arch and C2, and these are screws which have to be placed, but this is at a great depth. So we devised an instrument where you get a good length, and once you get that good length, so you can work at a depth without going into that area. And you can actually measure, it can be corrected in all the 3 dimensions, and therefore you can actually see them by correcting them in all the 3 dimensions. More details of this are available on the internet. You can actually go there. This has already been published. And therefore you can actually, so you have different lines, and there are some, and many new things came up with this. We had to actually, how to tighten, how to change, and once you do that, even making this video took a lot of time. And therefore everything is an innovation. Everything that you do is innovation. So you can distract and you can stabilize. So once you do that, then this, you can put pedicle screws there, and then the distraction helps because this doesn't come back, and then you can put different types of rods inside in C2. So you can correct different ways this displacement has occurred. Now comes to a very interesting thing. I have, until very recently, I have 2 very cute dogs. One was Coco. He probably, unfortunately, passed away only about 12 days ago. And the other one is a pug, Pippin. So Pippin can fit into Coco's mouth. You know, sometimes, you know, he would just go there. He would bite his tail. He would hang on to his ears. He would, you know, he would do so many things. And so he was 10 years old, and he was only 8 months old, 6 months old. And gradually he created space for himself. He took his bed, then he took his bowl, then he hung on to his tail, so he was always conscious. This guy will be somewhere at the back. Then, you know, so gradually, he created his space. So marking your space is very important. What happens in India is that we are very deferential to our seniors. Okay, so now I am the boss, so this guy will be very differential to me. Oh, sir, oh, sir, oh, sir. But what happens is, it kind of culls creativity. The creative age is between 20 and 30. That's the age when you can really do things. And in India, because of this excessive respect and our differential attitude towards our seniors, you know, you suppress good ideas which are coming your way. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't have to fight with your seniors, but on the same time, you must be aware of the fact that marking your space is extremely important, like Pippin did with Coco. And the other one which has been given is a status quo bias. What is a status quo bias? I'm in a beautiful hall, I'm in a beautiful center, I'm in the most prestigious center, and therefore why should I don't need to tax myself. Why do I need to work so much? Why do I need to innovate? I'm already doing this, I'm writing so many papers, you know, why do I need to innovate? So this is known as the status quo bias. You know, you're in a nice home, nice garden, nice breeze, everything is nice. It lulls you into a feeling of complete complacency. And that's why innovations don't happen. So in Deepak Chopra in 7 Spiritual Laws of Success has said a very beautiful thing. Be careful of what you wish for, as the universe conspires to give it to you. So whatever you want hard enough, universe will actually conspire to give it to you. This is a true thing. I must tell you that this is absolutely true. So again, I told you, conformity and respect for chair are important, but they are not that important. You do not cull your creativity simply because of your, because of your respect. So it is self-esteem, self-confidence, self-respect have to be taken with you every time you leave the door. This is very, very, very important. And please do not see shapes in clouds. So just give yourself time. Don't just every time jump to conclusions. Give yourself time. Get into the subject. See it from the person's point of view, the person who's asking you for a particular solution. And then you will actually understand that a cloud is a cloud and it's not a horse. And of course, the next thing which comes up is getting through the rigmarole of patent laws. And here you do need professional help. A lot of us don't understand that we are not good enough to understand all the patent laws. Therefore, we must get professional help to actually take us through the rigmarole of the patent laws. This is very, very important. You must actually get into this, get it through the whole thing, get it through the system by actually getting there. And the interesting thing is, IIT graduates come to me for 3 months. And the first thing I tell them is, don't say you love me unless you mean it. Because I might do something stupid like believing it. Okay? So if you are coming to me, and not me as a person, but me as a person who has a problem and you're coming to provide solutions, then please understand that you have to give your time, energy, and this will last a lifetime. Okay? It's not that you do your thesis work for 6 months and that's the end of it, 3 months and that's the end of it. No, it has to last a lifetime. This passion for innovation in biomedical research has to last a lifetime. Then only after 10 years or 15 years, you will be in a stage where you will see patterns in nature, you will see patterns in innovation that will make you intensely successful. These short-term gains will not work. The last slides, of course, but I needed to share with you this. So what happened was I was a visiting professor to University of Fukushima in Japan, and that's where that thing happened, the tsunami had happened. And so my colleague, Professor Saito, he said, what would you like to go to a mall? You are free on the last day. I said, what mall? I don't want to go to a mall. I'd like to go to the place where there was this nuclear disaster. And so they said, no, there is radiation there. I said, no, I need to see that place. Let me see what it's all about. So he took me there, and of course, you can see the destruction. You can see the destruction, and you can see that the trees have been cut off from here. It was terrible. But of course, as Japan is, they're such a fantastic country that all the houses were lying like this, and there was nobody to steal. And you can see that the trees here, and you can see that this is the GPS, and you say that these are the areas where you should not go. They had put that on the GPS also in Japan. And we went ahead, and all these trucks were lying in the middle of the fields, and this is where that nuclear plant is. And this whole sea was radioactive, but we didn't touch the sea, but we went right up to it. And this was Takusato. Now, why am I showing this? How is it relevant? It's very relevant because, we went there, the roads were all perfect roads, beautiful roads, paved roads, and as Japan is, all the lights were working. So it was red light, yellow light, green light. Not a person there, but red light, green light, yellow light. Every light was working. And what else? Takusato would stop at every light. I said, Taku, he had done his fellowship also in SGPGI. I said, Taku, there's nobody here. What are you stopping for? There's no cop here. There's no person here. What are you stopping at every light for? I said, what do you mean? He was very surprised. He said, this is Japan. I have to stop. You understand? So how do you define character? How do you define character? Character is what you do when nobody else is observing you. That is character. How do you behave when nobody is observing you? That is character. And therefore, we need to learn that. What happens is, it's not for somebody else that you're working, it's for yourself that you're working. And that is what we all need to do, develop that character. Of course, commercialization of product, it's very expensive. Companies will never let on that they are excited about the product. There's no acknowledgement of and there's globalization by the other companies. Globalization. We have this beautiful product, thumbs up, Coca-Cola took it, and then we don't know anything about it. We have Hotmail by Samir Bhatia, and then there is Windows Hotmail now. So it's known as globalization, and you can't do much about it, but this is the way it works. So, you have to be prepared for it. So my final slide is something which is known as the illusion of attention. You think you're doing a very important discovery. You never know what you're overlooking. And I'd like to share with you some lines from a beautiful song. How many of you have seen the Pocahontas movie? So how many of you have seen? Only 2 people in the whole audience? Okay. It's a beautiful cartoon animated movie. And so there's this song, Colors of the Wind, by Vanessa Williams, won the 1995 Oscar, Grammy, Golden Globes, and many other awards for Best Song, Best Lyrics, and Best Musical Score. And I'd just like to share with you some lines from this song. It says, when you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you will learn things you never knew you never knew. This is very interesting. You walk the footstep of a stranger, and you will hear things, that you will see things, you will experience things that you never even knew, And let me, sorry, this is.
The earth is just a dead thing you can claim, but I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. Think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the moon, or ask the grinning wildcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. Even the sycamore grow. If you cut it down, then you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or whether we are white or copper skinned. We need to sing with all the voices of the mountain. Need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth, and still all you'll own is earth, until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
Thank you very much for your attention.
That was an incredible talk.
Thank you so much.
And it was almost like a sci-fi movie that we saw, especially at the end. Good, and I'm sure many of us will have questions. I think it's time for a little session. Yeah, go ahead.
Which type of surgery do you find that has the most record of failures? It is the toughest to.
No, it's never like that. You see, you get involved in a particular thing, then you get successes in those things, and then it interests you more, and you get more into it. So you know more and more about lesser and lesser things, and that's what makes you an expert. You understand? So therefore, you can never say that, okay, you will have successes and failures. It's just that as you become interested in a particular thing or an area, you become more and more better at it. And you start getting more and more recognition in that area, and you start doing more and more work in that area. And then patients say that here is an expert who has more experience in this. And therefore, let me ask you the definition of experience. What is the definition of experience? You need to answer this question. Since you asked me a question, I will ask you a question. This will discourage others from asking a question. So experience, the definition of experience is a series of bad experiences. So anybody who has good experience has had a series of bad experiences, and that's what makes him a person who has good experience. You understand? Always remember that.
So you have shown that in the surgery, you've got a lot of bones through high-speed drills. So it is very difficult to clean all of it. And I'm sure some pieces are left. Do they create any problem?
Not always. because it's an autologous tissue, which is like where there is no immunity to it. But if there is any infection, like for example, there are paranasal sinuses which are infected. So if they come in contact with the bone dust, then that area can get infected. And yes, we have our share of infections, and therefore, it kind of spreads on the brain and on the tissues all around. So we need to irrigate it after the whole surgery is over, and we need to make sure that the entire brain is covered with cottonoids before we actually go in. The only problem is when you're drilling, you can't have cottonoids. Now, I'll tell you a which might appear to be a very simple problem, but which has a very complex solution. When you are applying cottonoids on the brain, if even a small tissue of the cottonoid comes in contact with that high-speed drill, the cotton goes all around it, and then the whole thing, and you can actually cause a lot of injury. So we still don't have an optimum substance which can protect the brain, which can lie on the brain, and yet protect the brain from the drill. So when we actually do drilling, we remove the cottonoids and then do drilling. So that's why we have to be a little stable with our hands when we are drilling, because there is no cottonoid there. If you keep cottonoid, then it goes all around the drill, then suddenly you can't see anything, and there's blood all around, and that's a big mess.
Sir, the drill, how many times you use a single drill?
Oh, many times. Almost in every surgery, you can do a craniotomy, you have to use a drill, you have to do something. So all that you have to, it's very frequently used. So drill is very frequent. Yeah, exactly. Because it has so many revolutions per second, and therefore drills, we often have problems with drills, and we have to continuously maintain it. Many companies are not maintaining, and right now we are having this fight with the company wherein they say we will not move any. They're all functioning drills, and they say we will not maintain it, and we say we will have to maintain it. This goes on. Yeah, drills frequently go out of order because it's a mechanical thing, and it has I think 100,000 revolutions per second, 80 to 100,000, and therefore it has to it has a short lifespan, and then every time you have to change the drill bit to manage it.
What was the purpose of the bipolar electrodes?
No, bipolar is for coagulation. See what happens in the brain, the blood vessels are very small. So it is not possible for you to stitch blood vessels you would do in a peripheral surgery. Like for example, you can clearly dissect out a blood vessel and then stitch it up. But in the brain, you can't do that. And now even in the liver, in the lungs, many areas of the body. So what you do is, you have current which runs through both the electrodes. That means it is not spreading beyond the two ends of the forceps. Now what happens is, because the current is any tissue that you take in it, so it forms a kind of what do you call it? It's a circuit, and that circuit coagulates that particular tissue. So once it is coagulated, then it chars and it closes the mouth of the blood vessel. So for small blood vessels, you can do that. But for anything which is very large and it bleeds excessively, then you have other means to decrease the blood supply. They're all small innovations. I mean, rather than see, we had this discussion, and I said I'm going to answer this question here. Rather than me indicating problems and you solving those problems, what happens with that is you just end up doing very small stuff, which is not appropriate for your stature. What you need to do is to come and actually see, and then you will provide solutions to the problem which we do not know that we are facing. It's exactly like that song. There were many problems which we do not know we are facing, and you can provide solutions to the problems simply because you know that you can provide solutions to those problems. And that can only come when you come there, you stay, you go to different areas of medicine, and then you say, okay, I'll do this here, I'll do this here, I'll improve the optics here, I'll improve the biomechanics here, I'll bring out this solution here, I'll improve the genomics here. You can provide the solution. We don't even know that the solution exists. You understand? So sometimes it's not like a question and answer thing. When you're taking history of a patient, there are two ways of taking a history. There is one way. Once you become a little senior, then you say, आइए बैठिए, कैसे हैं आप, ठीक हैं, are you okay, सब ठीक रहा, हाँ, then you say, अच्छा आप बताइए क्या problem है, then you keep quiet and let the other person speak, and then you have a nice solution. You have a broad overview of the problem. Now you have a resident, and there is a consultant breathing up his neck, and he has so much of work, and he'll say, हाँ बताओ क्या काम है, अच्छा ठीक है कि नहीं है, ओहो अच्छा ये क्या ये है, ओहो नहीं अच्छा ऐसा कि नहीं, जल्दी बताओ यार जल्दी बताओ मेरे को देर हो रही है, चलो दूसरे पेशेंट को देखना है, चलो चलो चलो. He will not elicit any response. You understand? So if the interaction becomes a question and answer session, then it's not going to elicit a response. But if it is going to be a session wherein you are growing together and providing solutions to a particular problem, then you do not know that the problem exists, and I do not know that a solution exists. And once two intelligent people come together, then problems are solved without even consciously attempting to solve them. You understand? That's how it is. Another analogy I'll give you. What happens if you are driving on that Kanpur road, and you just learned to drive a car? Tell me, what do you do? What do you do? No. What you do is you drive fast. You drive fast. You drive at an unnatural speed, and you drive fast because you think that if you drive slow, then everybody will say, "Arey abhi naya naya sikha hai गाड़ी चलाना," है ना? So what do? You drive fast. So what you need to do is to drive slow, because that's your natural speed. You know you can't go drive fast there, you'll kill a few people there. So what you do is, if you are a experienced driver, you'll drive slow. And how do you drive slow? By going there, seeing things, seeing problems, and finding their solutions. हाँ बताओ मुझे problem and I will solve it. क्या प्रॉब्लम मुझे नहीं मालूम क्या प्रॉब्लम है, आपको नहीं मालूम है क्या सोल्यूशन है, आप दे सकते हो सोल्यूशन, क्या सोल्यूशन, पहले प्रॉब्लम तो बताओ. It's very complex. So this is what I'm saying. When two completely disparate minds come together, both are intelligent, then you can really get a lot of things done. There's another saying which is very interesting. It's very interesting, this saying. If two people are working together and both agree all the time, then one of them is a fool. And if both disagree all the time, then both are fools. So therefore, the balance has to be maintained.
I really appreciate the time spent by Professor Behari. Please join me in thanking him. We would like to have the interaction going, and we are really a part of it. But there's also going to be more structured kind of interaction coming up, and we would really look forward to that.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here.